Hey guys, I'm Ty Gipson, and I am excited to be here on the Notable Peeps podcast.
Have you ever had a goal that just seemed impossible? If so, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Notable Peeps podcast, a series that gives attention to remarkable people who are putting on their shoes, doing their best, and believing in the impossible.
All my dreams are coming true.
So, Ty, the way that I like to start out the show is by asking people, the tagline is put on your shoes, do your best, and believe in the impossible. So, can you take us back to a time in your life that it just felt so hard and how you were able to overcome it?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, and I think back on my story, there's several times, right, where and that's kind of where the no options mindset came from for me, because there's been several of those where I felt like I didn't have any options, right? And kind of hit that wall. I'll tell you that the main one was, I was 30 years old. Just found out that my kidneys were failing, and I've got a 6-year-old daughter. And I go to the doctor, and they tell me that there is an option, but it's a dual transplant that they're doing out in Baltimore, Maryland, that I can get my kidney and pancreas done at the same time. But the challenge here they only had 4 of them, and 2 of them did not do well. But I knew that my only shot was to be here for my daughter, was to be able to get through this and be on the other side of it. And so to get that call that night, was hard, because I didn't know what I was coming back to. Right. And so that was a point in time where it was really hard to make that call, to make that decision to go for it, because I didn't know what was on the other side of it. But that's what's so exciting now, as I talk about, is on the other side of adversity. I love talking about that. So, but that was one of the hardest moments, because it was bad. I was in a bad spot. I was in a really bad spot, but it could have gotten a lot worse, put it that way. But it could have gotten real bad. Yeah, it could have gotten a lot better. And so, and that's why I talked about how powerful our mind is. Sometimes we got to go in and look at it. There's no options but to get better. So that's kind of where I was. Over the years, people would come and ask me stuff about, so how did you get through that? Right? How did you get through these times? There was like 3 or 4 of these times through my career, my life, that were just kind of wild. Like, how did you get through it? And so I really look back, and I kind of just dove into these moments, and I realized, and as I'm talking about it, my wife was like, Ty, you keep mentioning no options. Like, I didn't have an option, but to. And so that's kind of where the words no option came from. But the mindset is, I always talk about, when you're in those spots, right? People say, be positive thinking. Well, that's such a broad statement, right? And when someone's down there, when you're in that ditch, or you're looking at that wall, or whatever that looks like, those words are hard to digest. And so I needed to break it down into smaller pieces. And that's how the no options mindset, are just a positive thinking mindset, but I broke it down into some small steps that I can take, because I need small steps. I can't think that. I need small things that I can do to process to get me through it. And I'll talk to them. Number one, the first step I go through is I ask myself, am I going to grow or die? Right. And when I say die, I don't mean death. I mean, am I going to let my dream go? Am I going to let my purpose go? Am I going to quit fighting for whatever it is that I have that why, right? And then, or am I going to just, am I going to find a way to get better through this? Or am I going to let it take over? Who's going to win here, kind of thing. And then number 2 is I talk about, is hope or despair. Am I going to be why did I have diabetes? Why have I had, multiple 3 transplants? Why? I can go down that road all day long. But I don't want to ask why. I find hope. I've got to find the positive, and lack of a better word, the silver lining in that right there, right? We got to find something positive. And then number 3 is humor, drama. And I always say, laughter is probably one of the best things that we can do. But sometimes you got to find a little bit of humor in some of the darkest places. Because if you don't, you can't get yourself through it. And so I always say, so I would sometimes just try to find something that was pretty comical. And so even my friends to this day, when I'll say something, they're like, "What? What are you saying?" But I mean, for instance, I take, when I came out of the hospital, I was taking 65 pills a day.
Holy cow.
You know, and so I tell people all the time, man, I only have to take 32 today. I'm excited. And they're like, you only take 32. And I'm like, yeah, because I used to take 65. I'm excited. So, you gotta find little things. And I said, that's minute, but to me, it's a positive thing. And our mind is like a muscle. If we keep working it negatively or don't do anything with it, it goes, you don't grow. But if we keep thinking positive things, we're going to slowly build this muscle, which is our mind, to think more positive. When we first see things, it goes to the positive side, not the negative side.
Man, yeah, like, and that example that you gave with the medicine, I guarantee I'm gonna be thinking about that a lot. Like perspective, changes a lot.
It
And I'm
does.
curious because all of this started. You said you were 30 years old when
When I had my
you
first transplant, yes,
when
yes.
you had your first transplant.
Mhm.
So, like, how was life different before all of your health challenges? Like, who were you before?
Well, and I'm going to go way back because I've battled health my whole life. Um, at 8, I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. And I'm going to age myself here, Steph. This was back in the late 70s. So, I'm 56 years old, right? So I'm an older guy, but the thing was back then the technology wasn't there. So diabetes was a lot more challenging back then. Um, but so I've always dealt with somewhat challenges my whole life, right? And then and when I turned 10, they finally said, "Ty, you got such a brittle diabetes. We're gonna get you to see this doctor, the specialist, and they're working on this new cool thing." Well, the new cool thing was the insulin pump. So
Mm.
I wore a thing on my side that was 2 pounds when I, first started trying. It was a chemotherapy machine that they were putting insulin in. Well, nowadays you see these now that, the one I have now is probably 4 ounces, right? So it's come so far, but I have always kind of been that. So I don't know, Stephanie, what it was like before some of the health challenges. I just, I kind of get, I've kind of just prepared for each battle. But, after my transplant, someone said, and I thought this was probably the best quote I ever said. It was in the Baltimore paper there. They asked me, they said, Ty, how was the surgery? How were you before the surgery and after the surgery? And just quickly, I just said, it's like seeing life in black and white and now seeing it in full color because and I really, to this day, I've thought about how could I make that better? That's dead on. That's dead on because I mean, I don't think people realize how bad diabetes makes people feel because it's one of those silent kind of diseases that you look at them and they look healthy. What's wrong? Why can't you go run? Why can't you go? Well, a lot of it is because of, a lot of diabetics are just, they're just bad days. I used to tell my wife, if I didn't go to work because I didn't feel good, I wouldn't go to work like 3 or 4 days a week. You just
Mhm.
learn to push through. And that was one of the things back growing up. And you asked about how, before some of these medical challenges, I grew up down in Southeast Texas. And my dad was one of these guys in that era. There was a lot that did back then, but dust off, boy, nobody wants to hear your problems, right? Nobody wants to hear your problems. So I was never one. That was kind of the mindset I had. And I always kind of thought it was a little cruel. But what I didn't realize is that he was only just preparing me for my road ahead. Because I really do believe, I think some of our past, some of the challenges that we're put through is just to prepare us for what's coming and make us tougher, right? Make us stronger, make us think differently through things. Um, and I don't mean tougher like just grit and grind it, but but more so just mentally prepare us to get through that stuff.
Hearing your background of always, even as a kid having diabetes, I was like, man, how do you not get like frustrated or like angry with life being dealt, But hearing you talk about your dad and then like your no options, do you feel like really has helped you?
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of it came from because I do. I mean, you just gotta, it's a mindset, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't, anybody, anybody can do it. It's not, I don't have anything different than anybody else, right? We have our mind and our mind is so powerful. It's just a way I think, right? It's a mindset that that's helped me through this is just to deter, make, this is the way I look at things. And it's definitely from, I think it helped me when I was younger because honestly, Steph, for all these years, I've never taught. I mean, I've never told any. In fact, I was with one of my friends today, and he said, "Ty, I had no idea you'd gone through all this." And this is a guy that I've known for years,
Mhm.
but I didn't tell my story. I mean, until about 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't even talk about it because of that. My dad was that nobody wants to hear your problems, right? But what the interesting story was is I went to my wife's family reunion, and she said, "Ty, I know you don't like talking about it, but a lot of my family wants to hear your story. Do you mind telling them?" And I said, "Well, if they want to hear all my problems, I'll tell them." And so I told them, but on the way home that night, and this is where it really changed for me. On the way home that night, I got like 4 texts from her family members that said, "Hey, thanks for sharing because, now I'm going to go be an organ donor." One of them said, "Hey, I'm going through a lot right now, and this is really going to help me kind of push through. If you could do it," all these things. And I thought, well, how selfish am I if I can simply tell my story and help other people? So, you know, um, after about a year and a half ago, my wife and I were able to sell our company. We had a company come along and purchase us that wanted this. My wife said, "Todd, what are you going to do with your extra time?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea." She says, "I do. I know what you ought to do." And she said, "You need to be telling your story." And so here I am. This is what I do today. And this is why I love it because, um, I say every day is a bonus day for me. I'm just glad to be here.
To have that perspective too of every day is a bonus day, like, really that gratitude, right? Like, where you're like, "Well, there's a bunch of dishes,"
Yeah.
instead of
Bring it
or
on, right?
whatever it might be.
Right. That's what, I mean, I say that all the time. I mean, I'm just glad to be here to be able to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
whether dishes or, drive my 15-year-old daughter to soccer every day, whatever. I love it. I'm just excited to be able to do it.
That's cool. I'm curious, like, how has your relationship with your wife grown with
Right.
everything? Because to have several like times that you've faced death, like I'm sure that's hard on her as a
Well,
partner.
yeah, and the story even gets a little better there, Stephanie. And I'll tell you the interesting part of that. My wife is amazing, and she's why I'm still here, literally, in multiple reasons. But it has been hard, but it's also grown us. It has grown our relationship even stronger. But um, I had my transplant when I was 30, right? And then, uh, but they don't last forever. Organs don't last forever. So I had a pancreas that lasted 12 years. That was from the organ. That's from an organ donor because you can't get a living organ. You can't get that from. So that was somebody that donated their organ. My mother, who I received her kidney, my first kidney was from my mother. My mother's kidney lasted for 20 years. But
Whoa.
after that transplant when I was 30, I wasn't married, at that time. I had a 6-year-old daughter, um, but I was able to get married. I was able to adopt my second daughter, and then I was able to start our business, and that's the business that, we've sold and all that. But I was able to do all that. And so I always say on the other side of some of these challenges, there's some amazing things, right? And that's what we got to keep in mind. It's hard, but man, on the other side, it's good. It's really good. And so, um, my wife, now 20 years later, right, my kidneys fail and they immediately put me on dialysis. But I've got this business. I got 45 employees. My wife works in the business with us, and we're working a lot, both of us. Well, my sister was a match. So getting set up now, I'm in dialysis. I go to dialysis from 4:30 in the morning till 9. And then I would go in the office, act like nobody, try to act like nothing was wrong. Because again, my dad, that was the way I was raised. Nobody wants to hear about it. So I would just push through. I'd push through. And then that's when we went to the family reunion during that time. And that's kind of when all that changed. But my sisters, they came back at the last minute and said her kidneys weren't going to work. There was something going on that was not the right fit and all this. And my wife said, Ty, I can't watch you do this. I'm a different type of blood type, but what I want to go do is I want to donate my kidney and then return somebody that matches you donates to you, and it moves you up on the line, on the list, and so that we can get this done. So I was, I was very thankful. And I really, I mean, I was getting really sick, and I really didn't want her to go through that, but, but she was very determined to do it. And so she goes to do all the blood work for that. And she calls me and she's crying. And I'm like, what is wrong? She said, Ty, I match you perfectly.
Oh,
So
really?
I received my wife's kidney 6 years ago. And
Uh,
so, I mean, when you talk about, um, I was just laughing because I've received my mother's and my wife's. So like Mother's Day, I'm like, I don't have enough gems. There's not enough gems in the world for these two women that have saved my life. Mom's given me life twice, and my wife has saved me. And so, yes, it's been an amazing journey in our relationship as well.
Man, like, how, like, special to have that because, like you said, that you're like, you don't want your wife to have to go through that, but just, that she wanted you to live, you know?
Yeah,
She was like you said, she was determined, of course.
she
But that's really cool, especially when you're like, "What do I get them? They gave you life."
She does remind me though. She throws that card every now and then or something. We just laugh and like something. In fact, she did it the other day or something. It was like dinner or something. And I wanted to go somewhere and she wanted to. And she says, "Whose kidney do you have?" And I said, "Okay, you win." She always throws that trump card. Yeah, no, she throws it every now and then. But no, it's been an amazing journey.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I would throw that around too to get to the place that I want. So, um, like, I'm curious, what do you feel like people who are like, quote unquote, like healthy, right? Like they don't have chronic things that they're worried about with their health. What do you think that like we take for granted?
That's a great question, and I do think that just the little things. There's a lot of people dealing with things out there. I'm not, but I mean, just the little things that I think that we overlook about life. Life is such a precious thing, and it's temporary. And I think a lot of times we know every day matters, and so that's one thing that I realized after getting through that is like, man, don't pass up the opportunity today, whatever it is, to call a friend or help someone, or my mother is still, she's 85 today, and I still try, I call her every day. I still try to call my mother every day and just say hello, or check on her and see if there's anything I can do. And but I don't want to miss that moment, because I know that day's not going to, there's going to be a day where I can't pick up the phone and call her, or I can't tell my daughters. I know my family probably gets tired of me, but I text throughout the day. I have a family text. And I just tell them how pretty they are and how much I love them. And I'm just thankful. And I think we take that for granted sometimes, is how precious today is. Not we don't have to be looking 6 months out for that cruise, or when we graduate, or when that next job. I mean, be thankful for what we've got today. And I think
Man, Ty, we're recording this. I just barely got off work. I'm still in the studio at work, and it was a long day, and I was feeling tired. And I love podcasting, but just talking to you and just the dumb things that I was bugged with today, like they don't matter, and it gives that perspective of, yeah, live every day up, you don't know how long you have and everyone else in your life. So thank you for sharing that because, yeah, this conversation has just reminded me of what's really important.
it really is. I mean, and I'm glad. I'm glad it's connected. That's my thing is, you know, and being like the text messages and stuff I got that night that said, "Hey, thanks for doing." I think everybody has a story, right? And we never know who the persons are right or persons are left, what they're going through and what they need to hear today, right? So, I mean, just because I've had, some crazy things in my life, but sometimes it's just the little things about everybody has a story. And I would encourage, unlike my father, my dad was a wonderful man, but go share your story. People do want to hear.
I never get sick of hearing people's stories because no two stories are the same and you can always learn something.
Absolutely.
So so I'm curious though, because you guys had a business, you had these employees, you sold it. Was it hard to transition to that to now you're doing you have podcasting and speaking and stuff? Was it hard to transition to that? Or was it an easy transition?
Well, I never thought I would be in any form or fashion a public speaker or any sort like that. I never ever dreamed of. In fact, when I went to after my wife told me I should tell my story, I found this group that could help me with speaking. And I thought I was going to tell them my story so they could tell it. And they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no. We're here to teach you to tell your story because it needs to come from, you know, being authentic and coming from you." But so I I never thought that I would would do that. But I'll tell you, it's been amazing because um I didn't I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I mean I'm one of those that probably will never retire, quote unquote retire, because yeah, I've got to be busy and my wife knows that, right? So I've got to be going and doing it. Uh,
Mhm.
and so this has been the most rewarding thing. And we built a business that was great. We sold it and it was a very successful business. And that's been fun. That was great building it. I loved it. But I'll tell you, I mean, just to be able to help somebody. I mean, I was on a call the other day with someone from the UK that heard one of these podcasts and called me and texted me and asked if I could get on a call with them. And because they were going through something. And I thought, man, how cool is that, right? That I was able to help somebody. And that's been the most rewarding thing to me is that, and podcasting is somewhat new. I've been speaking kind of, I do, kind of keynotes and motivational kind of stuff and talk about going through adversity. And that's what I really um, kind of set to do. But then this podcasting thing's kind of new. But man, the people that you meet and like yourself that are doing such great groundwork and the people you get to meet, like you said, every story's so cool. And I mean, it's been such a reward to me, but I think it's one of those things when when you find what your purpose is, it kind of the stars align, and so it's been a lot
Mhm.
of fun.
Well, and isn't it interesting because I think sometimes, uh, you know, purpose, it seems like from a lot of people I've talked to, it has to deal with helping other people for the most
Mhm.
part, whether
Yeah,
that's your family or strangers.
and I think the best definition of purpose that I've seen is and Gab Bochet does say, and Brian Bochet says it the best about this. He says it's the best of what you have to help others. And I
Hmm.
think I mean, just simply said, but I think that's so true. When you find your purpose, it's what something that the talents that we've been given, um, and when we can find that, to help other people, and I truly believe that. Again, the business thing was fun, and I do talk to a lot of businesses about small business owners and about adversity, getting through them, and I love that world. I do, man. But when I can sit down and talk to somebody about just trying to get through life, but that's really where my heart just kind of swells.
No, and you can see that in you, like, you
Yeah.
light up talking about it, so
I do. I love it. I really do. And I mean, and it's kind of interesting. I started out thinking, okay, I'll just talk to diabetics and transplant people. Well, then when I was talking to these people, they're like, Todd, no, you can help so many other people. And and I'm so glad they did that because I'll tell you, a lot of the people that I do get that reach out to me are not diabetics or not transplant. Now I have those quite often. I mean, I have people. I mean, I had a call just not long ago where someone connected with me with a family that was unfortunately they had their son was on life support, and they were determining whether to donate their organs, and they
mm,
called me and they wanted to talk to me. They had questions. The mother had questions of but so you get some really hard calls, but man, what I encouraged them. I said, it's and I am it's such a horrible thing that you're going through, but just the little glimpse of hope that you can give somebody else, like myself. I mean, I wouldn't have made it if somebody wouldn't have decided to be an organ donor years ago. I wouldn't be here. My daughter, who we adopted, I always think, where would she be? Right? I think, what would she be doing? And how would she have made it? Or what would she have turned out? And so I'm so thankful though for those people when they do donate organs and help other people. But I think, it's it's a hard decision for people. It really
mhm.
is. And I always encourage people, if they're not an organ donor, I'd love to talk to them about it. Um, because I think it's a really easy decision for me to tell people because now that I've been through it, until you've gone through it or until you know somebody who went through it, you don't really think about
Yeah. Okay, this might be a dumb question, but,
it.
like, how do you become a organ donor?
Oh, wow. And that's a great question. So in Texas, now, and all the states have a little bit of different, but through your state driver's license and things of that nature, on there's questions whether you want to be an organ donor, and they will put, like in Texas, there's a little heart at the bottom of your driver's license that says organ donor.
No, that like, and I'm sure talking to that kid's family, like you said, that is a hard conversation to have because those parents are mourning.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And they're right. And I mean, it just happened, the night before. So, I
Oh,
mean, so
man.
it's like so yeah, they're still in shock basically. Um,
Mhm.
but I have talked to some that since then, and they said that was, so thankful that they did it, you know. And so, yeah, it's a hard time, but I mean, you can say one organ donor can save up to 8 lives on, you know, and then there's so many more different organs that, skin, all these different things that can change lives. But there's 8 organs that can completely save someone's life. And there's people waiting right now, waiting on organs. I mean, there's a waiting list for organs. It's not like there's too many of them. We don't have enough.
Man, I had no idea. 8 lives. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, there's 8 different organs that will save lives, yeah.
Well, and I wonder too with this is not necessarily that people are against it, there's just people don't think about it.
Education, yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's an educational thing because they don't think about it. Like I said, unless they know somebody, and like my family did my I don't think anybody in my family was signed up to be organ donors until I went through it. Now they all are, right? So, but I tell I tell people all the time, I mean, if they get in the elevator long enough with me, they're gonna hear about organ donation. Right.
No, it's good. It's
Yeah.
good that you're spreading that education.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they don't know, they're gonna know about it.
Well, in wrapping up, just I want your advice. So, what's your advice to someone that maybe they're in a funk? Maybe they have, health problems going on right now. Maybe they've just lost a loved one. Maybe they lost his job. Whatever it might be, but they're going through a hard time. What's your words of wisdom to them?
Find something small. Don't try to change the world. Don't try to. You're not gonna, you're not gonna make that. You're not gonna flip the whole switch today. But find one small thing today that you could do better today that you did than yesterday. Find one small thing. It kind of goes back to that 1% growth every day. I know it's kind of a cliche, but there's a lot of truth to that. If you wanna get up and start walking every day a mile, well, get up and put your shoes on and walk a tenth of a mile. Whatever you got today. I mean, if you're feeling, if you're going through some really hard time, find something that you can do a small step today in. But don't try to change the world today. And don't get upset if you can't change the world today, because we need to take small steps. But if you take a small step today and a small step tomorrow and so on and so on, those steps start to get larger and larger, right? You're getting better further down the line. The other thing is, you know, the mind, as I said, is a powerful thing. And we all have the same tool, and that's our mind. I would say, look yourself in the mirror and to let yourself know that you are the one that's going to make this. Take some time to personally work on yourself. And when I say that mentally, I always say, for the longest, I never thought about taking time for me. And there's a reason when the oxygen mask falls down from this airplane, right? They say put it on yourself and then help others, because you can't help other people if you can't take care of yourself. And so I encourage, find whether that's getting up a little, 30 minutes earlier in the morning, and maybe if it's a meditation, if it's a prayer time, whatever it is, what does that look like in your world? Find some little things to do, small steps each day.
Man, that's such great advice, and that and your no options mindset, I feel like really I've learned a lot today.
Well, good.
So,
Well, I'm excited. And Stephanie, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you guys, TyGipson.com, and that's TYGIPSON.com. But on there's a phone number, and that phone number is my cell phone. I encourage people, if there's anybody out there that we connected with, please call me, text me. I don't care. If I can help, that's what I'm here for. And I really, really mean that. And so if somebody reaches out to you that needs, please, or if they want to call me direct, it doesn't matter. I just, I want to help in any way that I can. So please, please, please let me know how I can help in any way.
that's so great that you give that option for people too. Like, I love that. And really just like talking to you like earlier when I said that, like when you're talking about your purpose, you're glowing. Even when you were talking about that, like you can tell that this really lights you up. And so guys, don't hesitate. Give them a call, send them a text, and
But
I'll link
thumbs
that in
up.
the show notes.
Just, yeah,
So
take me a thumbs up or something. Let know how life is good. So yeah, and take, fine. Today is important. So enjoy today.
that's a great way to end. And remember, guys, to put on your shoes, do your best, and believe in the impossible. And I'll catch you next Sunday.
All my dreams are coming true.